I call it America, and I love it. Sir, I can and will be of any service that I can to help the country out. I have no concerns or motives other than helping the country out. So I wish not to be given a title or an appointed position. I can and will do more good if I remain a federal agent at large. I will help, but by doing it my way, through my communications with people of all ages. First and foremost, I am an entertainer, but all I need is the federal credentials. I am on the plane with Senator George Murphy, and we have been discussing the problems that our country is faced with. So I am staying at the Washington Hotel, room 505, 506, 507. I am registered under the name of John Burroughs. I will be here for as long as it takes to get the credentials of a federal agent.
I was told that if I checked this letter against Elvis's death certificate, which obviously had to be filled out, quote, after he died, I would find out that Elvis Presley filled out and signed his own death certificate. Now, this is incredible information. I mean, this is mind-boggling when you think about it. It's never been revealed, and I can tell you that I was told by a member of the family to have it checked out.
Gail took the death certificate and items written by Elvis to Paul Wiest, a certified graphologist who specializes in investigating forgeries.
I was asked by Gail Giorgio to examine some handwriting of Elvis Presley. She supplied me with a copy of a letter written to President Nixon in 1970 and the death certificate or medical examiner's report at the time of his reported death. I examined these two documents and compared them by measuring the slant of the handwriting, the spacing between the letters, spacing between the words, the size of the letters, and the individual letter formations. I also made transparent photocopies where I could lay one photocopy, transparent copy on top of another one for close comparison. I examined these under transmitted light with a light table. The result of my examination was that I found that the slant matched on both documents, that the size of the letters was the same, the spacing between the letters was the same, and many of the individual letter forms were the same. My conclusions after this exhaustive examination was, in my professional opinion as a document examiner, that the same person who wrote the letter to President Nixon also wrote the Elvis Presley death certificate or medical examiner's report of Elvis Presley's death.
But the question still remains. Why would Elvis Presley fake his own death? Was it simply so he could retire from the limelight? Perhaps, as many believe, was it because of Elvis's involvement in state and federal affairs, such as the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. It was in 1970 when Elvis received a federal badge from President Richard M. Nixon.
We know that it's not a token badge because, well, there was an article by Jack Anderson in the Washington Post that told about Elvis being sworn in as a federal agent. I think Elvis purposely low-keyed his role as a government agent for the effectiveness in acting in an undercover role.
Maria Columbus was also researching Elvis's life.
I had toured Graceland, and I had noticed in the trophy room a certificate of appreciation from the government to Elvis. And so I wrote to that particular bureau and asked, why was this given to Elvis? This was in 1982. And I received an answer from a Mr. Pritchett, saying that Elvis had provided cover for an undercover narcotics agent from the years of 1974 through 1976. The man was a musician and posed as part of his band.
Elvis is connected also with President Carter. We know by several biographies that 2 weeks, I believe, prior to August the 16th, the FBI arranged a telephone call with Elvis and President Carter. Not only do we have Elvis connected with 2 United States presidents, I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd get an appointment that easy. And I think if I wanted to call, say, President Carter, I couldn't really call the FBI and say, would you put a call through? This is the kind of clout Elvis had, but his clout run in a very official way. He was a federal agent. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I have read 663 FBI files on Elvis Presley. And his life was in danger. It's clear by the FBI reports. There were serious assassination threats made against him.
Recently, Gail Giorgio and myself viewed FBI documents obtained by Gail. In these documents, Elvis was the subject of numerous death threats. Some of these threats came from well-known underground figures, and it was also common knowledge that an undercover agent traveled as one of Elvis's band members. It's because of this affiliation that Elvis had with government agencies, because of these death threats, and the fact that this agent traveled as one of his band members, that lead us to believe that the strong possibility exists he may very well be a part of the witness protection program. But being a member of the law enforcement community myself, this prevents me from ever undermining any efforts of another law enforcement agency. And it also prevents me from telling you the answer to this question, which I know is the truth.
Yet, if Elvis Presley were alive, many questions still needed to be answered. It was Monty Nicholson's investigation which started to unravel the mystery.
One of the questions I asked myself while researching the Presley arrangement was, if Elvis did indeed fake his death, how would he support himself? He would need money. 3 facts came to light when I began to research this question. My sources tell me that in March of 1977, a full 3 months before Elvis died, he cashed in 3 life insurance policies for just shy of $2 million. Shortly after his death, fact number 2, there was a checking account, a private checking account, with an excess of $1 million that vanished and has not been explained as yet. Third fact, there's still a remaining insurance policy that is yet to be cashed. What is the significance of this? It's just this. The 3 life insurance policies that were cashed were paid up. There's no fraud involved. Those life insurance policies are owned by the insured. The third policy, or the remaining policy, I should say, was not paid up. If a surviving heir would cash in that policy and the person who was insured were still alive, that would be insurance fraud. The checking account I can't explain. It vanished. $1 million vanished. Is Elvis still alive? The feasibility certainly seems to be getting stronger.
Gail Giorgio and others believe that Elvis is alive and well and living in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
There was a newspaper article actually in Kalamazoo right before August 16th of 77, and it said that Elvis visited Kalamazoo incognito. But he had been seen there, and there's been some jokes, Burger King, shopping malls, etc. And people, I don't know if they actually believed it or it was just a joke or they thought they saw. But what happened was that I had received a telephone call some years ago from a woman who was a nurse at a hospital in New York City. and she said that Muhammad Ali had been a patient there. And while at the hospital, she said a man who looked identical to Elvis Presley visited Ali. Now, most people do realize that Muhammad Ali and Elvis were very, very close friends. They saw each other. He would visit Ali at his training camps and so forth. But there wasn't too much I could do about the information because it wasn't verifiable. Then, I guess, a couple of years ago, I received a telephone call and a letter from a woman from Ohio, and she had a copy of the Cincinnati Post, and she said that when Ali was leaving the hospital, it was a UPI story, leaving the hospital, he left with other men. It was on a Thursday night that they had left. And one of the men was Jesse Jackson. There was another unidentified man with Ali, and a fourth man who was captured. And it looks identical to Elvis Presley. The negative to that picture has disappeared, but the picture did appear in the newspaper, and I managed, of course, to get a copy of it. We sent it to experts who do facial analysis and so forth, where they compare it to other pictures of Elvis, and it matched up. They said, they tried to find flaws, but they couldn't. I mean, they measure nose to lips and the whole thing. And so they verified that it was Elvis Presley. And in November of '89, Ali was shown the picture, and he also verified that it was Elvis Presley. It was actually, the picture was even shown to to Billy Stanley, one of Elvis's stepbrothers, and he verified also that it was Elvis Presley. Now, what's interesting about this, tying this into Kalamazoo, is that Ali lives right outside of Kalamazoo. He lives in Berrien Springs, but he uses the Kalamazoo postmark. It's always stamped on all his envelopes. So therefore, when you put it all together, the sightings begin to make sense.
In 1980, Maria received a tape from another Elvis investigator, Stephen C. Chances. The tape was a recent recording allegedly made by Elvis Presley. Gail Giorgio decided to find out if the recording was authentic.
Even though it was called a monologue, it really wasn't. He had been talking over the telephone to somebody, and whoever he was talking to edited themselves out. But I finally contacted a voice authentication expert who works with the government, and he's with a major law enforcement agency in Texas by the name of L.H. Williams.
Gail had sent me a copy of a transcript of the tape recording of the unknown person, and this was 4 pages long. In this process, I also requested copies of known tape recordings of Elvis Presley, and I followed the guidelines that were established during the Watergate case for possible authentication of the tape recording. I selected the same words and phrases of the known and the unknown person for comparison purposes. This is the known sample of Elvis Presley stating the word music. This is a sample from the unknown tape recording showing the word music. The formats that were formed fall within the same frequency range through here, which would indicate a match. Basically, the known voice of Elvis Presley compared with the voice on this tape is the same.
What was said on the tape became even more meaningful to me. The more I listened to it, the more I became aware of how sensitive Elvis was, how caring a person he was. He said things like this.
I started traveling all over the world, and it's been enjoyable, but it's been a constant battle of growing beards and this and that to keep from being recognized. Anyway, the first place that I wanted to see in Germany was a place called Wiesbaden. I don't know whether or not you've ever seen Wiesbaden before, but my girlfriend was with me, and we went to a place to get something to eat. And a waitress asked me what we'd like to have. And I said, I don't know really. What would you suggest? And she stood still. She just kept staring at me, and and I started getting very nervous. Well, at the time, I had a beard and I lost a few pounds. And I thought it would be very, very hard for anyone to recognize me. And then she asked me if I'd ever been to Germany in the past. And then I got more nervous. But she said, you know, I never forget a face. And then she said, I don't know how you did it. She said, I don't care how you did it. She said, I just hope that you're as happy as you've made me tonight.
If this tape was indeed Elvis Presley, it would mean that Elvis had gone back to Germany, the same place where he served in the U.S. Army back in 1958.
Elvis, you don't get out of the Army until 1960. If rock and roll should diminish in popularity or even disappear, what would you do? Well, I would probably try acting. I mean, you know, I would try to make good as an actor, although it's a tough field to break into, acting, because you got so much competition.
Elvis's induction into the service broke many a teenager's heart.
Then off for 18-month service in Germany. Assigned to the 3rd Armored Division, Private Elvis will drive a light truck.
On November 27, 1958, Elvis was promoted to private first class. 2 years later, when he left West Germany, he held the rank of sergeant.
Have 2 years of sobering Army life changed your mind about rock and roll? Sobering Army life? No, it hasn't. It hasn't changed my mind, because I was in tanks for a long time, you see. And they rock and roll quite a bit.
After writing numerous articles and books, Gail is encouraged by her readers' reactions.
On balance, very, very positive. It's just one more piece of an incredibly complex mosaic. I mean, it's impossible, totally impossible, to digest all of this information. You could do a 10-hour documentary. It wouldn't be long enough. I mean, there's tapes, pictures, phone calls, handwritten letters, the government connection, FBI papers. You know, you can just go on and on and on. There's so much. You know, it is mind-boggling, but sometimes it disturbs me, because there are critics out there that won't even take the time to look at all this evidence. If my critics would come to my office and spend a couple of years, there's no way they could leave that office and not ask the question, is Elvis alive?